So I think I have one of the best ideas of how kickflips work, because I went through every single motion of having all the wrong kickflips, all the wrong strategies. I've watched all the tutorials. I've done literally everything I could to figure out how to have a decent kickflip. And I've been skating for just about 20 years now. And I figured it out about 3 years ago on a road trip out to California. It was like my goal. I was like, you know what? By the time I get out there, I'm gonna have a decent kickflip. I've always just had like the grossest kickflip. They were always mob. And what it took was not watching a tutorial. It was nothing that someone said to me. It was literally stopping and thinking about what a kickflip actually is and how it actually works. All of the little subtle mechanics that go into it. I think everyone has a basic idea of how kickflips work, and I think the majority of us are wrong because we're basing it off of how ollies work. And we're thinking, okay, I'm gonna ollie and then I'm gonna flick, you know, this way, and I'm gonna kick the board and it's gonna kickflip out. And then when their kickflips are mob, when their kickflips start flipping like this, they're like, well, why is it not tweaking out? And I think I really did discover the real secret to it. Now, I did a video on Dale's channel where I talk a little bit about it, because I actually taught Dale how to kickflip. Here's a clip of how Dale's kickflips used to look. And here's how his kickflips look now. And all it was explaining how to think about it. But I'm gonna explain to you not only how to think about kickflips, not only how to learn kickflips, but how kickflips actually work. Because I think they don't work the way that a lot of people think. So first things first, foot placement. Doesn't matter. All that matters is your feet go in the right places. So the most common spot that people are gonna do when they're first learning this trick is they're gonna hang their foot off a good bit. It is easier to get your foot off the board the more it hangs off. So if you're having trouble getting your board to flip and it's sticking to your foot, just keep bringing it more and more off the board. It's gonna be easier to flick. But your goal, your end goal, it doesn't matter where your foot is on the board. All that matters is where it gets to. And where you want it to get to is about right here. You want it to slide up and off at this angle. Now, if you go straight, if you hit anywhere here or that way, the board's not gonna flip. The further this way you go, the faster it's gonna flip. And when you flick, it's not a flick off the side. It's not like you're gonna slide your foot up and you kind of like kick it off over here. You're kicking through the board. And that's what literally is making your board not mob out. Because if I just do a kickflip and I just slide it off the side, it's gonna do this. It's gonna stay very, very vertical. And I mean, I think fear dictates that a lot, where like you're just trying to get your feet out of the way and it's making it kind of like stay up. That actually wasn't that bad for being somewhat mob. But what really happens is when they flick off over here, usually they don't bring their back foot up either, and that is a huge part of kickflips, is you need to bring your back foot up and you need to kick your front foot out and slightly down. And that's what's gonna suck it up to your back foot. Another thing that people picture when they do kickflips is they think this. They think they're going sliding up, ollieing, and then flicking, but your back foot comes completely off the board for pretty much every flip trick. When you pop, you want nothing on the board except for your front foot. And when it's just on your front foot, that kicking down motion, if your front foot's the only thing that's touching the board, and the last time it touches is it at the nose, it has to go this way. It has to tweak down. If you kick off over here, maybe it's gonna flip more sideways, but since the curvature of the nose is going up, if you kick here and your back foot's off the board, gravity is forcing it to go this way. I mean, I've heard people say try to kickflip into nose manuals. I tell people to pick an invisible point under the nose to aim for and hit that target to make it flick out. Whatever you gotta do, however you gotta think of it, I don't care. Long as the only thing that's touching your board at one point in time is just your front foot and you are kicking down and out. Kick through your board, not off your board, not, you know, flicking with the tip of your toe of the board. I don't even care what part of your shoe flicks the board. When I kickflip, I use my entire foot. That's like my kickflip setup. And they still work because as long as the last point of my foot touching the board is on the nose and my back foot's not on, they're gonna level out. We're gonna count that. That was great. Standing still kickflips are really hard. Yeah, let's try another one. I can never do standing still kickflips. Whatever, wasn't the word. So, those are the fundamentals of how to make your kickflips not be like the mobbest thing in the world. But there's little secrets. There's a couple little tricks. One, in my opinion, when you're learning kickflips, a lot of times you're doing this. You're like kickflipping in and you're landing it with one foot, or you'll kickflip and land it with back foot. You'll kickflip the board in front of you. None of that's how you learn a kickflip. If you're doing any of those things, you're not actually learning kickflips. What you're doing is you're learning how to flip a board in a body weight position that is not gonna let you land it. The only way that you're actually making progress on kickflips is if you're landing on the board no matter what. So if you're doing this, that is 100 times closer than this. That's not close, because my body weight's over here. I'm using this initial make the tail touch the ground and jumping backwards. That's never gonna let me get back on the board. It's all about commitment. So focus on landing on your board no matter what. You have to accept the fact that, like, hey, I might land on the board upside down. I might land with my foot on the truck. I might land primo. And guess what? None of that stuff's that big of a deal. If you land primo, you're probably just gonna like roll over. You're not gonna get that hurt. There's super crazy freak accidents that happen when people land primo or upside down and they get hurt. Maybe they like hurt an ankle or scrape an elbow. But guess what? You're probably more likely to get way more broke off just skating through your neighborhood with any sort of speed. You're stationary. You're not really falling that hard. Just fully commit to your kickflips. Put your feet on it no matter what. I know a lot of people, it helps to start with doing that foot, then doing that foot, and then trying to do both feet. If you want to do that, fine. I think that's kind of the long road to get to the same thing. I think you should immediately just be like, no matter what, both feet. But, you know, whatever is your comfort zone, by all means, go for it. The easiest way, like if you're not flipping it fast enough, that means the sharper you flick, the faster it's gonna flip. And the less, if you're just flipping with this much of your toe, it's probably gonna flip a little faster. When I do double flips, kickflips is here, double flips is here, and I try to flick a little bit sharper. So the lower down on the nose and the more aggressive your flick, the faster the board is gonna flip. So if you're flipping too slow, flick more this direction and sharper. And if you're flipping too fast, if you're over flipping your board, go up a little higher. And it really helps me to think that it's only my front foot on the board when I'm flicking. Like, I'm gonna do a couple flat ground kickflips, and you can see where my body weight is. See where my flick is. That was kind of a wild kickflip, but I haven't lived in skating. All right, here we go. Now note how my back foot is completely coming off the board and I'm flicking. It's very much like I'm kind of lifting my back foot up immediately to get it out of the way, because if I flick like sharp and down too early when my back foot's still low, no matter how fast I flick it, it's definitely gonna not let the board tweak out. It's just gonna suck up to my feet too early, and it'll stay at whatever angle it eventually meets your foot. So the second I pop, I very much try to bring my back foot up, because as high as you bring your back foot up, it's as far as you're gonna be able to tweak it down. Now I'm not saying you should kickflip and be like suck it up crazy fast, but you definitely wanna bring it a little bit higher than your front foot. So it should be like, if you're flicking at this angle and your foot's here at the end of the flick, which is where it should be, that's automatically a kickflip this high. You're already gonna be kickflipping this high if you use this actual technique to do it. You don't have to do one of those little rollover donkey kicks. You can just go here, flick right here at this point. This foot should already be at the same height, and that's gonna kick it down. Because when you actually ollie or anything, you're not like necessarily keeping both feet on the board the whole time. Now with ollie, sometimes you can kind of keep it on pretty well, but you'll see a lot of people ollie like this. Like their back foot will completely come off, and that's okay, because it eventually sucks up to your feet, and then you manipulate it in the air. It's the exact same thing with kickflips, and I think focusing on the fact that my back foot leaves the board helps me a lot with leveling out my kickflips. The other big thing that you want to do is definitely pick, once you find that spot that works for you, memorize that spot. When you look down at your board, think about that spot. Moving on to the next part of kickflips, and that's kickflipping down stuff. A lot of people have a good kickflip on flat, and then they'll go to do it down something, and all of a sudden their kickflips are mobbed, or all of a sudden their kickflips are inconsistent, or it's not sticking on their feet the way that they want to. And that's because when you kickflip down stuff, you're thinking about your kickflip differently. You're not thinking about where you're gonna flick off point. You're thinking about pushing it forward. And when you go to kickflip forward, I think that causes a lot of people to slide off a little early because they're thinking about getting from point A to point B, their motion's jumping forward, and their body weight will get a little bit in front of their board, and that'll like kind of hold the board back and make it mob. So what I like to do is I practice going over a crack where I will kick forward like I'm trying to get down something, but I will kind of hesitate back a little bit. It's almost like I'm not trying to get my body to jump forward before my board. I'm almost trying to get my board to go slightly like a millisecond before my body. Because if my body's ahead of my board, it's gonna mob. Guaranteed it's gonna mob. So I kind of kick it forward. Stay a little bit more in the back seat. And it just, I don't know, it just always makes my kickflip level out. So let's, I don't know, I got a hurt ankle right now, but I'm gonna kickflip off of something. Let's kickflip. We'll go kickflip the 3-stair in the park. So you could tell that my momentum in the beginning is a little bit more held back slightly than it was on flat ground. Here is one more little secret, one more thing that you can do to think about to help fix your kickflips and make them look cooler without actually like really trying to break it down in your head. And that is the lazy flick. I learned that when I do a kickflip and I intentionally let my front foot hang out there a little longer, like I'll flick and think, okay, back foot definitely catches it. And sometimes I'll even try to land on the ground with only my back foot on the board for a second and then set my front foot down. It really helps me play with the kickflip in the air. So even if it's mobbed the first couple times, you'll slowly kind of be, it's easier to focus on what your flick's doing for some reason. When I focus on like throwing my ankle out there, I can kind of like picture where I'm gonna keep it and keep it in that spot that I want it to be to get the right flick. So like I'll do some kickflips like this. It's sort of like, just letting it dangle a little longer, not necessarily trying to pop high, but just kind of exaggerate it. Almost like I'm doing like a kickflip volley north. That's one thing that I practice to try to get my kickflips the way I want them to. Another thing is, instead of trying to like pop a real high kickflip, try to control it up there, it's actually a lot easier to control a really low kickflip and then keep burping, and then slowly build on that kickflip. So do like low and controlled kickflips where they're just like level or maybe slightly past level, and then slowly add more oomph. Because when you pop harder, your muscles tense up and it's just a lot harder to control your body and where you're flicking because you're doing everything a lot faster. So if you do it low, slow, and controlled, it's gonna be easier for you to figure out where that dipping point is and where that spot where you're gonna kick off and it's gonna suck up to your back foot is. So really take your time figuring those out. So it'll be, hopefully look a little bit like this. Just little baby, little control ones. Little guys like that. If you can flick it fast and low, you can pretty much do anything you want with it. Even that was higher than I tried. And then once you figure that out, a high kickflip, same exact thing. You're just gonna pop, and know that when the harder you pop, the steeper your board's gonna probably shoot up. So you have to counteract that by kind of letting it stick to your front foot a little bit longer before you flick. The longer the board sticks to your front foot without your back foot on it, the easier it is to make it tweak down. So I'll try to pop a big one right now. Pop a big one. Probably not going to. Yeah, that was mob. Let it pop. All right, there. That's like, I don't know, it's easier for me to pop a good kickflip after I do a bunch of little ones too. I have a hurt ankle right now, so it's like slowly building my way up as I'm explaining. It's definitely making my kickflips work because I also have new shoes. I got so many valid excuses why my kickflips are garbage right now, but they're not, because I know how to do them now, and so do you. Here's a poppy kickflip in slow-mo. Now, of course, the only way you're really gonna get them down is just to go out there and try it for a while. None of these tips that I say are gonna click right away. You're not gonna like hear a piece of information and then go apply it, because you have a lot of muscle memory already built up, because I'm assuming you've tried this or done this before you watch this video. If you already have kickflips down and you're not doing them the way that you wanna do them, you're gonna have a lot of unlearning to do. So it's gonna take patience. I would set a day aside and like work on one small fundamental thing at a time, like making the board stick to my front foot, kicking off the point of the nose that I want, making it tweak down, putting both feet on it, like one at a time. Because if you try to do everything at once, it's kind of like a golf swing. It's like too much to think about. They say that the average person at maximum can think about 7 things at once. I can't think about like more than 2 things at once. So take your time, be patient, one thing at a time, and by the end of it, you should have a decent kickflip, I hope. Definitely send me your kickflip improvements. That would be awesome, because I like seeing people learn stuff. So yeah, till next time.